Welcome everyone. My name's Graham Hunt. I'm a co-convener of the Sydney Central branch of Renew, and it's great to have you all here today. Also to all the people who are signing in online, coming from all over New South Wales and even interstate. So it's good to have you join us. Firstly, I'm very happy actually to acknowledge that we're meeting on the land of the Indigenous people, the Barragatamul and the Darug people. And we acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. And we also acknowledge their sustainable stewardship of this country over many millennia. If you're signing in from other countries, please let us know through the chat where you're from. We have people here from all over Sydney and also from some of the regions in the room, which is great. We have a busy schedule with 5 great speakers, and so we've got a lot to get through. We will leave all the questions to the end, and we'll have an extended Q&A session at the end with all of our panellists. We may not get through all the questions, so I ask for your patience in that regard. We will keep a record of all questions online, and hopefully we may be able to address them via email. We will be taking questions from the floor in the room first, and then if we have time, going online. So first, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Lisa Kalaris from Parramatta. She's a sustainability officer with the city, and for the last 3 years, and prior to that served as an environmental education officer in the council. She has over 20 years experience in local government, working extensively on environmental sustainability programs. Her role involves delivering specific projects which are outlined in council's environmental, strategic and management plans. These aim to support and encourage community participation in environmental practices and programs. These include climate change mitigation and adaptation, water and energy conservation, renewable energy systems, sustainable consumption and purchasing, eco-renovation and stormwater pollution prevention. Quite a broad range. So would you please welcome Lisa?
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Graham, for that introduction. I'll start by also acknowledging the traditional owners of this land, the Darug Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and extend that to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people that are with us here today. So I'm grateful to be here as part of this program today to talk about our energy future. The aim of this program is to reduce the carbon emissions from our residential sector. And I'll talk to you about how we do that now. Oh, looks different. Okay, so our program, our Energy Future, has been around for a number of years. It consists of 2 main programs. The first one is the home energy assessments. Now, we have about 40 of those per year, 40 assessments that we run per year, or we can afford to run. If there's a little bit of spare budget, then we'll add to that number. And we've been running those every year since about 2022. So we have quite a good cohort of community there involved. It involves a 1-hour in-home assessment, and the energy consultant will spend quite a bit of time getting to know the household, their lifestyle, I suppose, and all the other elements of that household. So they cover elements such as the insulation, lighting appliances, the solar potential if they don't have any, hot water, and of course behaviour change. Now, behaviour change is a key component of this program, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So at the end of the assessment, they're presented with a very detailed report. So I'll talk about that in a second. The second part of that is the home energy advice service. And I guess on the surface, it looks like an online platform where people can jump on and get an instant estimate and a quote, but it's definitely much more than that. And it provides bespoke advice to the household, and it really helps them identify where they want to spend their money on different products and how they can make the best value, get the best value out of that. We connect them with vetted suppliers, and essentially we want to become a one-stop shop. So you've probably heard that around the place, that terminology now. The one-stop shop seems to be what our community is wanting, and we're seeing that in the evaluation as well. So it is a whole journey support system for the household to go through. So I'll just talk firstly about the home energy assessments. So what we cover in there, it does say 1 hour there, but our energy consultant does like to chat. So it's an hour and a half at least. And they really get a good understanding of how the household operates within the space. So again, we talk about all of those elements, hot water, insulation, but it's not just sit down at the coffee table and chat. It's looking at the insulation, getting into the ceiling cavity, really digging in deep to what's happening in the household. Before we turn up, we do get the NMI data of the household, and we can compare those with the energy and gas bills. So we're understanding the seasonal variation that the household is going through and where they use energy the most. The behaviour change discussions are a really key element to this, as I said before. And that's because we have such a diverse range of socioeconomic households in our LGA. And we really need to go in with the lowest hanging fruit. We need to achieve those items first and foremost, and it's all about efficiency. So we're often surprised by the feedback that we get back with just these simple behaviour changes that we probably all in the room do without thinking about it, but it's still really new information to a lot of our residents. We do talk about the solar and battery systems, of course. That is usually the driver for getting people to reach out to us in the first place. So we're using that as leverage. So talking about solar and battery is really a nice way to get started. So the final report is the golden nugget in this program, to be honest. We're seeing that in the evaluation, and it's surprising how cherished this report is with our community. So the report includes at least 10 recommendations, and that's not specific to product upgrades. It's about the commitments to behaviour change and reflects the discussion that the household has had with the energy consultant. We also factor in future ambitions for that household. So if they're looking at maybe in the future purchasing an EV or batteries, or even if they're running businesses from home, then we tailor the approach and the report to suit that need. Most recently, we've started to include the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. So if you haven't seen that, jump online and search it up. We try not to get too involved in that, obviously, when we're not recommending any particular bank loan or lender, but we do encourage the householder to talk to their loan provider and see if there are any incentives for them to upgrade to energy efficient practices within their home. Of course, we also include federal and state rebates. I'll talk a bit more about that because that is also a barrier that we've identified. We talk about the auxiliary devices, and it really comes down to timers and power boards and smart meters and even apps on our phones. So it's really making the residents aware of all of these different applications that are available to them. We have a separate section for rented apartments and renters in general, but to be honest, they're probably less than 20% of the participants in this program. So that's identifying a gap there that we need to work on. And of course, we promote all other council programs and services. So I like evaluation, and I tend to torture my residents with it, as Paroshka knows. So as part of this program, I evaluate them at 3 stages. So once they've had the assessment, they've received the report, and I check in with them within a month of receiving that report. I do that again, slightly different survey, after 6 months and then at 12 months. And that helps us identify the journey or track the journey that the household is going through, and we can identify pinch points and maybe some barriers that we were assuming were there, maybe not, and others that have just come to light. So from those surveys, I can share with you some snippets here. We've got a 96% high satisfaction rate even after 12 months. That's post-assessment. So the fact that they're remembering us 12 months later, for me, that's a win. 92% say that they are still motivated to make improvements after 12 months. So when we know that we've realised that it actually takes a bit longer to make these changes than we originally anticipated. So when we're planning these programs, and anyone working in local government will know, you need it done within the financial year and you need to achieve this. Realistically, most residents, we're finding take more than 12 months to do what you want them to do, essentially. So we just need to factor that into our expectations, I suppose, and maybe budget. 43%, this is interesting. So 43% have changed their behaviour to use appliances during the day to take advantage of solar. Now, keeping in mind, this is at the 6-month mark, this percentage. At the 6-month mark, people had solar, but they were not taking advantage of using appliances and devices during the peak solar period. So it's great that we've got rebates and we're asking everybody to install solar onto their roofs, but they're still not using that solar at the right time. So a gap we need to work on. 42% say they have completed or about to complete an LED lighting upgrade. This is really tricky for our LGA. The housing types that we have, if they're not brand new apartments or near new, then they're quite old. So I live in a 1930s circa home, and changing LED lighting upgrade was a nightmare. I had to rewire the whole house. So there's lots of old buildings that are presenting barriers there, which probably explains that lower percentage there. Everyone has used the Energy Made Easy website, and if you haven't, I encourage you definitely to jump on yourselves. You need your NMI number from your electricity bill, but jump on there and you can see a lot of great data. Our energy consultant has found that that has a big impact in the discussions that he's having, so now he will actually open the laptop, sit there and put the jump onto the Energy Made Easy website and talk that through. So a great outcome there. 63% are in the process or have fully electrified their household as part of this program. So for us, that's a massive tick. Like, we know how fast we have to transition to low carbon households, and this is definitely helping that transition. Everyone is looking at insulation. If they haven't, they're about to, and obviously that comes with a bit of a financial cost, but it looks like everybody's quite interested in that. And we have the thermal cameras. The energy consultant gets up into the ceiling, takes photos for the resident, and a lot of the time it's really just readjusting the ceiling bats. When an electrician's gone up there to install ceiling fans or some maintenance, they've moved the ceiling bats around and there's no longer a nice seal. So he changes that back for them. And a cool one on the end, 67% said they saw a reduction in the electricity bill, which makes my manager happy. Okay, so we've got loads of opportunities for improvement in this program. We have an endless list, and I guess this is the top few. We have a problem with changing to over to induction cooktops. So there's lots of reasons. We've explored options for that, lots of reasons behind that, but our evaluation shows that people are holding out for a rebate. So I know state government's here, hello, and there's a bit of a barrier. Sorry, there's a bit of a barrier with cost, of course, but also the bench top type and different materials and options available. So we need to work on that collectively. Cost and time obviously is a barrier for all of our community programs. Doesn't matter what topic you're on, it's always the top excuse for not taking action. But from our evaluation, we do see that rebates and discounts are a motivator. We also have an opportunity to work with our growing cohort of renovators and knockdown rebuild residents. So in City of Parramatta, we have had some changes to zoning areas, which means a lot of our older residents are being changed into multi-unit dwellings of some size and type. And so what we want to do is really get on the front end of that and have an influence on their building design and the choices they're making with materials. So that's blue skying. We want to be a one-stop shop of trusted suppliers, and we're starting on that process now. Anyone who's working in local government knows that can be tricky when we're talking about suggesting or recommending suppliers, but we can work around it. And the opportunities are to meet the residents where they're at. So through the assessment process, through this detailed discussion that we're having with the residents, we're really understanding where everybody is in on their journey. Many people have already installed different things, done the draft proofing, and got solar perhaps, but they want to know where to go next. Others, entry level, no idea, heaters on, windows open, like that kind of level. So this is a great opportunity to understand where they're at. Okay, so the second part of the program is the Home Energy Advice Service. We've partnered with ZapCat on this program. They're here now in the room. Yeah, good. And so you guys can have a chat with them later. I'm going to go over it a little bit quicker than probably we'd like for the interest of time. But the Paroshka has allowed me to steal her slide here, so I didn't have to make it myself. So if there's any problems, blame her. So this is the process that we take our residents through. And to be honest, it's working really, really well. There's some key elements in this process that are just gold. And I've seen it work with my own eyes, and I'm going to share with you some of the results. So as I said, initially it looks like an online instant estimate quote comparison website. And they're a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. There's a number of them. The point of difference for this model is that it doesn't end just after the instant estimate is provided. Most of the time, people freak out. Wow, this is more expensive than I thought. Right? We are there to lead in with a hug, virtual hug, to say, it's okay, let's talk it through. And essentially, that's where the ZapCat team then make contact with the resident and the household to get a more accurate quote and a better understanding of what they're about to purchase. So in that discussion, sometimes they've got existing quotes that they can bring to the ZapCat team and say, what does this mean? These two quotes don't compare nicely. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me out. Other times it's just a general chat. The conversation eventually leads to an ideal product for that household, considering all elements, the financial status, lifestyle, number of people in the home, all of these details that need to be considered, ends up in a recommendation for one product. Once we get them there, that's the hard part. So they're confident, they're well informed. We need to get them through to having an inspection on site and providing a detailed quote. And ZapCat has a number of vetted installers and suppliers that they can draw from. We've insisted that the majority of those are based within the LGA, which was a big ask, but they did it. And we're able to provide at least 2 suppliers to quote on any of our products that we've got on offer. Once that quote is provided, again, ZapCat will be on the phone or on the emails, talking them through it, comparing the quotes, looking at what's best for the household, and then hopefully they can get them over the line to book an installation. So that's the end, and it's installed. That's the end of the process. Really nice fairy tale ending. I, again, being an over-evaluator probably, I go in with surveys. So you can see along the grey bottom line there, and I survey the residents who are taking part after the recommendation stage. So at this point, they've had a number of conversations with the ZapCat team. And to be honest, ZapCat, close your ears, I'm testing them. I want to know how they have responded to the residents' requests. How are they thoughtful? Are they polite? You know, basic stuff. Do they get back in time? But also, you know, is the resident feeling more informed, more empowered, more aware of their options? Then again, I go in and survey them after the quote is provided. So at this stage, they've had 2 providers come out and do an inspection on the property. So I want to know, who are those installers? Are the installers behaving in a proper way? Are they providing a quote that's competitive? ZapCat also get the quote. So they're also kind of back up, making sure that there's no dodginess going on with some of our tradespeople. Not that they would do that. And so at that point, then we have a really good idea of any suppliers that might be not quite perfectly meeting our expectations. And between Paroshka and I, we can address that. And we have in the past, and believe me, she's onto it. So after that point, obviously I evaluate at the end once the resident has had their product fully installed and they're super happy, usually. And then we follow up with case study interviews, different things like that. So that's the process. As of today, roughly, these numbers are very optimistic, we have about 1,200 instant estimates that have been completed online, which is really good. And I know a lot of you have probably been curious and jumped on there and done it yourself. So, you know, that's a nice number, but it's probably not realistic of our community. We have 420 that have gone through to the consultation stage. This is where ZapCat is really jumping in and having those conversations backward and forward, emails. As you know, people are on the train, going to and from work, they're quickly sending an email back to ZapCat and keep the discussion going. From those 420, we have 80 go through to getting a quote and a site inspection, 30 through to installations being booked. And that comes down to maybe our tradespeople keeping up with that demand. But what's really cool is that 46% are coming soon. So we need to keep the program going. As I said before, that 12-month period, people need a lot of time to make this decision. 46 more coming through. We need to keep the program running. And 25 have installed today, and that's 10 months into the program. Okay, so ZapCat have a lot of numbers, a lot of data that I think they love to have and play with. And the dashboard that is presented to any council that signs up is very thorough, and you know there's lots of numbers there, and if they're not there, you can ask for them. But basically, two numbers I'd love to draw out of this. One is that top right-hand corner, which is the revenue to the installers. So this is the value to local economy. So if you want to impress your councillors or write a media release or showcase this program somehow by saying that there's $85,000 worth of local investment, that's a win. The other number, and if anyone is responsible for their emissions reporting at councils or any other organisation, the bottom line there is gold. And this is real. These are real numbers. These aren't emission factors. These are actual real numbers of the savings for each of the products installed. How are we going? Got a couple of minutes. Okay, so after 10 months with the ZapCat program, we've found that it's a 92% high satisfaction rating from our residents. Remember, there's 3 points of evaluation through the program. 80% say it has saved them time in decision making. So if we're speeding up that process to install these products quicker, that's a great outcome, not usually measured, right? 71% say they've used a ZapCat vetted installer, which is awesome. That shows us that there's trust in the vetted suppliers that ZapCat have on their books. We want to keep that nice and high. Most residents are reaching out to us for the solar and battery as the entry level, but as they come in, they're often searching up multiple products. So there's ambition to change more or upgrade multiple products in the household, which is nice. And they've got the main reason, the main inquiry is really based on that financial cost benefit for the household. So that allows, by knowing that, it allows us to tailor our communications and messaging approach. So we're not going to be saying install solar because it's going to save the planet. We're going to be saying install solar because it saves this much money. And for all of the other products, it's going to be that kind of messaging to draw more people in. The residents are telling us that they really do appreciate the diversity of communication methods that ZapCat is offering. So it's not just a phone call. It's not having, you know, that mystery number pop up on your phone going, who is this? What do they want? It's whatever they want. It's a virtual consult. It's the emails. It's a constant backwards and forwards of communication that's happening. And I think Paroshka ran some numbers last week and found that there's about 24 points of contact, average, this is average, 24 points of contact between ZapCat getting them an instant estimate and through to installation. So that's average, and it can be up to about 40. So I do not have time to talk to one resident 40 times, even 24 times, to convince them to install solar or upgrade their hot water. But ZapCat are doing it, and they're using technical experts, and they've got the patience and the time to invest and answer all of the questions that are coming to them. And of course, that significant local economy value there of 85,000, we love that. Okay, so what's next for our program overall? We've identified that there's some local businesses that are interested in taking part. Our current energy consultant isn't covering businesses, so we have a bit of a gap there. We want to learn what everybody else is doing and the impact that we could have on our business community. They're definitely hungry for it. We want to address the barriers that we've seen there, and two that come to mind that you're probably all working with is renters and those in strata buildings. So whilst we have great rebates for strata and solar, we're finding that there's quite a few barriers, everything from language and nationality, financial limitations. It's complex, and we want to see how we can kind of push people onto that journey a bit easier. We've identified some nudge points or points where we can really have an influence. A lot of people get stuck in the research cycle. So they keep getting quotes and they keep asking questions, but they just don't get to that point of making a decision. And we want to look at our education program offering so we can support that for them if they've still got questions. And we're making some case studies, some video case studies that can hopefully, move them along. And finally, which is why I'm here today, really, and that is to explore other opportunities with all of you. So if we can spread this out as far and wide as we can, then it's going to benefit our communities, which really don't care which LGA they're in. The work has to be done. So welcoming any discussions after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. It's good to hear about some programs that are actually having an impact. So our next speaker is Lexi Crouch, who's the Climate Change and Sustainability Program Lead from the City of Newcastle. Lexi has a background spanning environmental science, marketing and behaviour change. And she brings a unique approach to designing programs that deliver tangible emissions reductions. She's led landmark projects, including a renewable energy power purchase agreement that has led to 150,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent over 6 years, saving 5.3 million in energy costs. At the City of Newcastle, Lexi designs and delivers programs that empower residents, businesses and community organisations to switch to renewable energy, electrify and create a net zero Newcastle by 2040. So would you please welcome Lexi?
Thank you, Graham. And I just wanted to do a shout out to Lisa for being so generous with your time. I know there's a number of us in the room that have actually met with Lisa to hear about her experience with the Home Energy Service program and get that feedback. So thank you so much for sharing your time. It's one of the things I love about working in local government. We're not competing, let's work together. I wanted to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're gathered on today, the Darug people, and also pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the lands on which I live and work, the Worimi and Awabakal people. So I caught the train here from Newcastle this morning, and one of the things that I loved seeing was the beautiful acknowledgement of country on the new inner city fleet trains from Newcastle to Sydney. The Marry Young Emu Dreamtime story and how they're portraying that to thousands of people that catch these trains every single day. So it's a beautiful acknowledgement of country, and I want to see more of that. So I want to start my talk today by admitting something that I haven't really said in public before, and I haven't really said a lot in my lifetime, and that is I was wrong, not once, but twice. And I'm going to tell you the story about how I was wrong today. So it all began about 12 months ago when I started at City of Newcastle and we launched our Empowering Newcastle programs. This is our community climate action program. And I was talking to my manager about the things that we wanted to do. What programs do we want to deliver? Where do we want to start with this program? And my manager said to me, I think we should run a community net zero training program. So here's where I got it wrong. And it took me a little bit to realise this. So I said two things. I said, I don't think we really need a community net zero training program to start. And two, the reason I think that is because education doesn't really lead to the behaviour change. There are other things that can lead to behaviour change that I think we should focus on. So I thought, I'm going to go dive into the data and prove this to you, manager. So that's what I did. I'm a data nerd too, Lisa. So we're probably all using the snapshot climate data, which shows our emissions. In Newcastle, it's about 3 million tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions produced every single year. So City of Newcastle have a target for net zero for our community, our LGA emissions by 2040. So we've got 15 years. So let's take this a little bit further. I needed to break this data down in a different way to be able to design our community programs. So I got Ironbark Sustainability, which is the consultancy behind the Snapshot Climate Report, to do this key emitters report, which breaks it down by sector, which is really handy. So we're all here at a residential electrification conference here today. So I'm going to focus on that green section. 23% of Newcastle's emissions are from the residential sector. Let's dive a little deeper. Can you tell I love pie charts? So looking again at that residential sector, this tells me exactly what I need to know. So the majority of emissions in that residential sector is actually transport. So 46% of emissions there, almost half. So we have a transport team at City of Newcastle who is responsible for supporting the shift to active and public transport. So we let them do that. But in my team, the climate change and sustainability team, our role is support the acceleration of electric vehicle uptake. And the main strategy we've used to do that is by having a really comprehensive and robust electric vehicle charging network. I don't have a lot of time to cover that today, but if anyone is interested in our approach around that electric vehicle charging network, please let me know on the panel. So then we've got non-renewable electricity emission sources. So this one's easy, right? More solar, more batteries. We need to look at energy equity for people locked out of solar, and we need to look at more solutions like green power. So then we've got industrial processes and product use. In the residential sector, this is mainly refrigerant leaks from refrigerators and your air conditioning units. If anyone has a solution for that, let me know. So then we've got gas. So gas is quite small, you can see there, but I think that this is an opportunity that it can't be missed because every gas system that is replaced with another gas system is locking in those emissions for the next 10 years. So when we get closer to achieving our target, it's going to be a lot harder to get people to change those appliances that they've just upgraded. So we need to make sure that we're getting on this really quickly. And there's other things like the health benefits of it. And then finally, we've got waste. Again, we've got a separate waste team that works on things like composting and worm farms, waste reduction education. Over the next couple of years, we'll introduce FOGO, which I'm sure a lot of your councils have already got. And then we'll be expanding our gas capture and flaring at our landfill site as well to reduce our landfill emissions. And then I thought I'll spare you another layer of pie chart. So I popped a table over there on the right, which shows here that who our target market is. So in Newcastle, 2/3 have a standalone home. They're living in a standalone home, and 60% own their own home. So these are our low-hanging fruit. This is who we're going to go after with our programs to start. I'm going through this pretty quickly because I have 40 slides and 20 minutes. So to break this down another way, we've got 20% of Newcastle's emissions emanate from 6 decisions made around the dinner table. This is where we need to work on. And of course, what are those decisions? We've all seen and probably have this beautiful chart. Thank you, Donna Luckman from Marybeck Council. Those 6 things are electrifying our heating, our hot water, our cooking, powering our homes with solar and batteries, and moving to active public and electric transport. So the problem with that is this. The average Australian spends 9 minutes a year thinking about energy. And I know your minds are blown right now because if you're anything like me, you spend 9 hours a day thinking about energy. So we've got 9 minutes a year to convince them to make these changes, right? How are we going to do that? So here's a really interesting statistic. I love this one. This is a global study of 40,000 people. And the result was this. 88% of people, so 9 in every 10 people, trust recommendations from people they know more than any other form of advertising. So this is how we're going to do it. This is how we need to do it. The answer lies in conversations. So at the time, interesting segue, at the time I found out that my wife had never watched the Harry Potter movies. A travesty. We started watching them immediately. Now we got to film number 5, one of my favourites, where Harry creates Dumbledore's army in order to defeat Lord Voldemort. And I thought, this is it. This is what we need to do. I need to create Saul's army so we can defeat Lord Fossil Fuels. And this is where I had my epiphany. I've done all this work and figured out that my manager was right. We needed to do a community net zero training program. So that's what we did. Earlier this year, we launched it in March. It ran over 6 weeks, and we launched the Empowering Climate Champions program. It's a 6-week program. We met every week on a Thursday night in person at our council chambers. It was officially supported by Rewiring Australia, so the focus of this program was electrification. It was free to participate, but it was by application only. So we had 61 people apply, and I'll tell you the results later. This was a massive coup, but really helped elevate the program. We got the course accredited by none other than the United Nations. So in order to receive their official United Nations certificate, they had to attend 5 out of 6 sessions in person, and they had to complete a before survey before they started the course and an after survey, because I'm also an evaluation nerd and we need to measure the impact of our programs, right? More on that later. So we've got some beautiful certificates that came out of that and internationally recognised accreditation. One of our graduates actually got a job in sustainability for local government after the course, which is fantastic. So what did they learn? We had about 10 leading climate change organisations come and speak and teach our community members, our 51 graduates that actually came through the program. So we had the Climate Council, we had Renew, we had Graham coming along, we had Community Power Agency, we had Behaviour Works Australia, and so many more. So what did they learn? So they learned all about what communities are doing to drive climate action at a local level. What are they doing in their neighbourhoods? They learn about energy equity and how, as we go on this transition, we need to make sure that no one is left behind. They learned from Graham about energy efficiency. They learnt about solar and batteries, electric vehicles, virtual power plants, and community energy models, and everything in between. The rubber really hit the road in week 5. So this is where people learned how to actually communicate. So the key communication strategies that the Climate Council is using to talk about climate change and motivate people to act. And then it all came together when Behaviour Works Australia taught our participants what actually leads to behaviour change. One of the things that we had them do is throughout the 6-week program, they had to work on a project. So they had to come up with a project idea, develop a project plan, and the goal is that we wanted them to go out into the community and deliver their projects. And they came up with 30 project ideas. I'm going to speed through it because I don't have time to read through them, but there's some great things there. So after the program, we had 51 people graduate. We established a Climate Champions Network. So we catch up every 2 months. We meet in person at City of Newcastle, and we basically help them deliver their projects, keep learning together, and keep sharing our programs that they can go and disseminate in the community, because they're the conversation drivers, right? We coincided the training program to end just before our 2 grant programs started as well. So they had the opportunity to apply for funding to bring their project to life, and several of them did. And then, of course, we did a program evaluation. So it's only, I'll share some high-level results, but it hasn't been that long since the program started. So we had a great satisfaction rate. 96 learnt something new. So the 2 Hermione Grangers that said that they didn't are coming along next year to teach the session for us. Then we had some other great results, like increase in knowledge. So this chart shows before they went through the course, this is the number of people that said they had high or very high knowledge of these topics that we covered off in the course. This is after. Oh, sorry, the chart's gone a bit haywire there. But key things to note is there was a 3-fold increase in knowledge of electrification, communication strategies, and behavioural science, and a 7-fold increase in energy equity and community energy models. So this far exceeded our expectations. And we had so much knowledge that was learned that we thought we should turn it into a book. So we did. I'll pass this around at morning tea if anyone would like to have a look, and shoot me an email if you want a copy of it as well. Again, councils, we can share everything. Isn't this great? So increase in confidence talking about climate change, confidence in delivering community climate projects as well, and an increase in hope for the future. God knows we need a little bit of that right now. So we use a community engagement spectrum for planning and evaluation of our community engagement programs. I won't cover this off in too many details because the slide is not aesthetically pleasing for me. So let's go to here. That's better. So basically, we've got a bit of a funnel here. We get people that aren't aware of what we're doing. We want to get them interested. We want to get them participating. And the ultimate goal, the gold standard, is we want to empower them to go out into the community and lead their own projects. That's the goal, right? They're confident and they're capable to go out and do this without our support. So let's go through the results and see what happened. So we had 61 applicants. We had 51 graduate from the program. We did a 4-month survey. So it's only 4 months since the program finished. We only had 19 people complete it. So these are the results from those 19 people. So from those 19 people, they on average had over 10 conversations in the last 4 months since they completed the program, 184 conversations with family, friends and neighbours about electrification since the program ended. Here's where I went wrong. So we actually saw that our champions went and did installations and started electrifying their own homes, and more on this in a second. They developed the 30 project plans. 4 of them have actually volunteered at events like Sustainable House Day or brought their electric vehicle on to an EV Expo event. We've got 19 that consistently attend our network meetings, so they're showing up every 2 months and they're putting in the work. We've had 5 that are actually delivering their projects right now. There's a couple that have become local energy legends, so they've developed a case study, they've had their professional photos taken to share their stories of what they're doing. And then we've had two groups launch Electrify neighbourhood groups, which is one of the key things that we really hoped that they would do. And 3 graduates have had their projects funded through our grants program, which is excellent. So so I wasn't expecting this at all. Again, I didn't think education led to behaviour change, but I was proved wrong. We had 4 people switch to an EV. Again, this is in 4 months since the program finished. 3 have installed a battery, 2 have installed solar, 2 switched to induction. Do you know how hard it is to switch to induction? Amen, they did well. And 1 switched to heat pump hot water as well. So we've got some great stats here using Rewiring Australia's estimates on how much they will save over the next 10 years. And that's actually had a reduction of 154 tonnes in emissions, which is a great outcome as well. And here's Chris at Saul's book tour recently, where he launched his Electrify 2287 program. So he's one of our graduates as well. He's had nothing but great things to say about the program, and he's definitely one of those steward level participants. I called him up the other day and said, we're looking for someone to go on NBN TV to talk about solar and batteries. Are you interested? He said, absolutely. So these are the types of community members that you need to amplify your message. So here's my army, and they create real magic, and I'm so, so proud of them. So over the last 12 months, we've been building up our Empowering Newcastle program. We've done the standard stuff, like we've got our Go Electric action plans. We do our community education events. We've had Saul Griffith and Penny Sharp come along. We've awarded over $260,000 in grant funding for sustainability projects. And we've launched a number of programs as well. And I really wanted to give you a bit of a sneak peek into one of the programs that actually launches this Thursday. And that's our Solar Neighbourhoods program that we're delivering in partnership with Lake Macquarie City Council and Maitland City Council, our 2 neighbouring councils, and 1,5, which is a leading Australian solar and battery installer. So again, in designing this program, we started with the data. So we did a meta-analysis to understand the barriers to solar uptake. And the studies kept telling us these 3 same things. The upfront cost is too expensive. I'm too overwhelmed. Every quote is a different size, is a different product, which is good, which is bad. Please help me. I've heard countless stories of residents calling me up saying, I've given up. Can you please help me? And until now, the answer is always, sorry, I work for council. I can't recommend one product or one supplier over another. Then the third barrier is there's a general lack of trust in solar installers and solar suppliers. Since the Australian battery rebate in particular, there's a lot of cowboys, there's a lot of poor quality batteries, and people just don't know who to trust. So we decided to design a program called Solar Neighbourhoods that is affordable, simple and trusted. Every decision we made about these programs had to align with these three principles in order to address those barriers. So this is a behavioural-led, research-led approach to designing our programs. Maybe we can do this again next year and I'll let you know how we go and if it's been successful. So how are we making it affordable? So the councils together have negotiated what we believe is great pricing for great quality products. We've secured an exclusive 1,250 program discount in addition to the other government rebates that are available. And then we've got 2 virtual power plant options if the community decide to join them, where they can earn additional income and the additional rebate from the New South Wales government as well. We're making it simple. So the key thing is that your local council has done the hard work for you. We've reviewed all of the different product options and we believe we've chosen ones that offer great value. High quality, durable, safe, proven, tested in the Australian market, great support, great warranties. I know that because I've read them. We've read them for you. So everything we've done in this program has had to pass what I call the grandmother test. So it has to be good enough to go on my grandmother's house because she is a saint. And it is. So I've got my heart behind this project. So we've got community education. We'll educate the residents about this. So if they don't want to go with our program, at least we're empowering them to make the right decisions when they're out there in the community. And we've got simple product packages to make it really easy. For example, we're going with Canadian solar panels, the great the all black look panel, which is really popular at the moment. We've got the SunGrow battery and all the batteries have blackout protection included as standard. This is part of making our communities more resilient, and they're all virtual power plant ready. We've also got 2 EV charger options, depending if someone wants a plug and play or a solar smart. We've got additional backup, like blackout protection if residents want more. And then we've got 2 options for virtual power plants, depending on whether people want the high risk, high returns model with Amber, or if they want to set and forget where it's basically capped savings, an extra $200 a year if they join Origin. And we'll do education about these as well because there's not a lot of trust in virtual power plants. But again, I've read the T's and C's and we can have a really open and honest conversation about what participating in these mean. And then speaking about that trust element, here's what we're doing. We've got market-leading warranties, which are best in the market for warranties, 3 post-installation checkups. So after 7 days, 3 months and 1 year, the system will be checked to make sure it's performing as they said it would in the quote. So those quotes need to be accurate and not inflated. This is all about trust. And I've communicated this because I've trained the people that will be answering the phones and doing the solar quoting from 1,5. I went along and I trained them. This is what we want. They've got a 5-year customer satisfaction guarantee. So after 5 years, if their system's not performing how 1,5 said that it would, they can get their system removed at no cost to them and all out-of-pocket costs refunded to them. Again, I've read this, it's only 1.5 pages, it's pretty good, and it just provides that extra guarantee for people that we've got confidence in the products that we're installing. And then the KPIs are all customer focused. There is not one KPI that is on sales or number of installations. We believe that by having a good customer experience and being open and honest and not sales tactics and sales pressure, that we're going to get a better outcome. And because I love behaviour change, Jamie's going to love this, we've got a sprinkling of social norms throughout our whole campaign. So we're really leveraging the neighbourhood effect. It's in our name, and well done to Mel who came up with the name Solar Neighbourhoods. I absolutely love it. So coming soon, 18th of September, to residents of Newcastle, Lake Mac and Maitland. And I'm probably gone over time. I'm just going to quickly wrap up to say, well, what's next for us? So in the coming months, we're excited to launch our Newcastle Electric Homes program, very similar to Lisa's, and that will cater for residents, strata and small businesses as well. So we'll look after those three categories. And we've got another project that we're going to pilot called Better Green Bills. So solar and batteries, great investment. That's going to help us switch to renewable energy, but comes with a big price tag, right? 20K up front for a decent sized system. What if you could switch to 100% renewable energy, green power, but save money while you're doing it? So we've partnered with a startup who basically does automated bill analysis. So you just sign your consent. They'll access all of your interval data from your existing retailer for however many years that you've been with them and tell you the one energy plan that is for you based on your energy data. And with 100% green power, of course. So we're hoping that that'll find some savings for people while also reducing emissions. But the big project, the longer term project that I'm really interested in, and we're just in the research and exploratory phase now, but is an energy equity piece. How can we bring power to the people who are locked out of solar and batteries, essentially? The people who rent, who live in apartments, who live in social housing, who are experiencing energy hardship. City of Newcastle already has one 5 megawatt solar farm. Why not do another and add a battery? And we provide that low cost, clean, locally generated renewable energy to our community members who need it most. So that's something I'm really excited to work on. How'd I go for time? All right, I'm done. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lexi. You got through those 40 slides very efficiently. Well done. And also, I'd just like to say it was very refreshing to be part of the Empowering Climate Change Education program in Newcastle. The participants were very, very much engaged, and it was really good to be there. So now to our next speaker, who is also from the Hunter. Melinda Brown is the Sustainability Engagement Officer at Lake Macquarie City Council, where she spent the last 2 years leading initiatives in home electrification, community environment grants, and the Explore Our Great Outdoors program. She has a strong scientific background as a marine scientist and a former researcher on honeybee nutrition for the state government. So this means she brings a unique perspective to the energy transition space. She's particularly passionate about designing inclusive projects that reach beyond the already engaged, helping more households take meaningful steps toward electrification and energy efficiency. So we're about to hear more from Mel. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Mel. I have the pleasure of speaking about some of our council's programs today. Before I begin, I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, anyone in the room, elders past, present, emerging, but also to pay my respects to the Indigenous people, the Awabakal people whose land that I get to work on. So Lake Macquarie is a pretty beautiful area. I'm not sure if anyone's ventured up that way from Sydney, but yeah, very lucky to work there. I will just say I am new to the electrification space, so I do have a bit of a chaotic bio that doesn't necessarily relate back to home energy efficiency. So I've taken a lot of my skills from previous roles and tried to incorporate them into the programs that we do at council. So for those who haven't been to Lake Mac, a little bit about it, it is quite a large area. And we do have really high, it's covering the stat, but I'm pretty sure it's in the 90s. Percent of our residents are in separate houses. So we are, I guess, a lot different to a lot of the Sydney councils. And when we sort of look at these stats, we think, you know, that is a lot of roofs that we can get solar onto. We have quite high owner-occupied rates. So there is really good opportunity in our community to get that sort of happening for our residents. Now, Lake Mac is no stranger to energy efficiency campaigns. And when I first started at council, I was sort of shown around our our online filing system, if you want to call it that, and told to sort of have a look at what we'd done in the past, talked to other colleagues about what had worked, things they'd experienced. I'm lucky to work in a team that has a huge amount of experience, and also my mum has worked at council for, I think, 36 years. So she's a graphic designer. So she was really great info for what projects we've done, because she designed a lot of the marketing for it. So I did my research, and the earliest I could find was in 2007. It was a newspaper clipping with Lake Mac Council encouraging our community to embrace green energy and green power. From there, the next big campaign was sort of in 2012, and it was called Be a Bill Buster. And I'm not sure if this campaign would fly in today's social climate. Bill basically, when he was doing great things for the environment and energy saving, he was healthy and happy. But when he was doing bad things, he was quite overweight with bags under his eyes and having a pretty rough time of life. So that was one of our campaigns to get people to be more energy efficient. And then in 2023, our electrification campaigns really started to ramp up again with our EV Open Day. That was hugely successful. So from there, I've joined the team, and in the last sort of year and a half, I feel like we've really picked off a fair bit of low-hanging fruit, but also taken time to sort of think about our community and how we can engage them. So coming from a scientific background, one huge part of science is communication. So there's no point doing a study if your community and everyone else doesn't understand what you're doing and why it's important. So for us, we sort of looked at different things we could do. We've had a couple of events with Renew. We did some webinars with them. That was really great. That sort of gave us a good indication of what people were actually interested in signing up for. Home batteries was the biggest one. So that was a good little push in that direction for us to sort of start to think, okay, well, that's something we need to look into more. We've introduced, I think a lot of councils have done this, the home energy audit toolkits into our libraries, along with the induction cooktops. They have been so popular in our community. We haven't promoted them, and the libraries have sort of begged us not to promote them, because word of mouth has been so great that the sign up for these kits is so huge. We've been desperately scrambling, trying to get more in the libraries. And that's been pretty incredible to see. We didn't anticipate that the word of mouth from this and that people would find the kits so great to use that they would sort of spread the word so much. So that's been a really, really successful thing, that is just empowering that community, and it is probably hitting those target groups that wouldn't necessarily respond to something in an email or social media. Having heard from their friends, you can get an infrared camera to check out your home. And they have been really great in partnership with our scorecard program. So we did a subsidised scorecard program where we paid for most of a scorecard assessment. It was a limited number of residents that were able to sort of secure these. Had a scorecard assessor go and look at people's homes, give them their detailed reports. And then we've kept in contact since then through surveys to see how people are going. And that program is still relatively new, but so far it's tracking similar results to what everyone else is seeing. Majority of participants are wanting to make changes and are making changes. The toolkits came in handy for all of those people that missed out. We were able to sort of refer them back and say, you can do your own home energy audits. And from word of mouth from the people that have then had the scorecard assessments have then sort of emailed in saying, we want to also do this. What can we do? We can direct them to those kits. And that is something that in the future I think we'd like to do more of, but we are waiting for the NatHERS scheme to come in, and we'll transition across to that rather than the scorecard. Down the bottom there, I think it's covered up. We have a really wonderful festival in Lake Macquarie. It's called the Living Smart Festival. It runs every year. We get, the number I'm told is 20,000 people on average through this festival. There is a bit of a joke that my manager plucks that number out of the air. It is a lot of people though. We have some really great speakers that come along to the day. Last year we had Gina Chick. This year we've got Dr. Carl is going to be there as our guest speaker. We have panels with experts on. I think Lexi is going to be on our panel this year as our electrification expert. So it's a really great opportunity to get our community really engaged. Now, the Energy Zone had its debut last year. We had a really great EV display in partnership with Renew. So a lot of their members brought along their cars. We had people cooking barbecues from the cars. All the people walking around, you know, there's often those who aren't too convinced of EVs yet. And it was such a great way to get people engaged, talking to not someone that's trying to sell them the car, but just a community member that has one and loves it. So that was really effective. We had a few talks from different people in our community. We even got doctors, well, a doctor, we've had two different events, but a doctor came along and did a talk about getting off gas. And so talked about it from the health perspective, you know, why it's important to transition. So through all of this, we're really trying hard to sort of hit it from every aspect we possibly can. You know, if someone's not environmentally minded, maybe they are health conscious, and maybe that is the push they might need to start making those transitions. We've done some great case studies. We've got a local resident, Gail, who I'll show you one of hers in a later slide. We've got sustainable neighbourhood groups, and they have been brilliant. They've been really active in the space, and they're essentially groups for different suburbs within our LGA that get together and think about different projects they'd like to do in their community, and then council helps facilitate that, whether it's through helping them with project planning or applying for grants. We've got a Ride to Work Day, which again encourages everybody to sort of stop creating those emissions through your ICE vehicles. And last year, we also created some electrification signage, which is all unbranded. And we're more than happy to share with any councils if you have an event coming up and you need some. We've got some beautiful pop-up arches that have electrification facts, and also some big panels that go over fencing. So if you're fencing off a little area and you want to put some info up, we've got some really amazing panels for that as well. So if you do have things coming up and you'd like to borrow them, we're more than happy to share. And then Solar Neighbourhoods is coming up, as Lexi just discussed. So a big part of what we've been trying to do is really target the people that haven't drunk the Kool-Aid. You know, they don't know who Saul Griffiths is. They don't really care about the environment. How do we get those people involved in reducing energy emissions in their home and wanting to electrify where they live? So this is a little picture from our Living Smart Festival last year. And we wanted to share some of the amazing facts about what council had been doing and what the direction we're going in. But we thought, you know, if we just put these up, are people going to read them? So we made them shaped like flowers and put them on a picket fence. So, you know, kids want to run over, parents are more likely to look. And we try and think really hard about little ways we can get people to sort of engage with information that traditionally can be seen as quite dry. I think a lot of people, you know, they're not too fussed about whether council's got enough solar on their buildings that's the equivalent of 4 power stations. But, you know, if you frame it in a nice way, you might get more people sort of wandering by. So that's something that we try to work with our community. We're also quite conscious of our wording and how we advertise all of our projects. So we have a really great email list called the Eco Advocate. I think it's got 6,000 or 7,000 subscribers. And they are the ones that have definitely drunk the Kool-Aid. So they're primed for the word electrification, for anything that's going to be environmentally friendly. They want to hear about it. So whenever we have projects going through the Eco Advocate, we will use that wording. We'll use the terms electrification because we know that's what they're aware of what it is. That's what they want to hear. But when it comes back to social media or any other mailing list through council, we don't use any of those words. So we go back to saying energy efficiency, and the focus is on saving money. So by doing that, we're sort of hoping that people in the community that are not engaged in this space are going to think, oh, you know, I'd love to save money, or yeah, my bills are too high. That is something that I'm going to look more into. Something that isn't on my bio that I will admit to that has sort of become a little bit of, I'd like to say a bit of a superpower, was that during COVID, I had a COVID career change that I'm not necessarily proud of, but I had to pay the bills. So from my marine science career, I had a lot of diesel engineering qualifications. When all my funding for research and jobs were lost during COVID, the only job I was able to get was driving coal trains in the Hunter Valley. So I spent a little while. I can drive a 1.5 kilometre long train if anyone ever needs a train driver. But one thing that job really taught me was how to talk to people that are absolutely not engaged in the climate or energy space at all. So when you've got 10 hours on a train with I'm going to say man, because, out of 170 employees, only 6 were women. So I was with men all the time that were not at all interested in this. I feel like that really helped me to develop that skill set of choosing what words I use, what questions I asked. And it's something I like to bring into this role where rather than saying to someone, you should get solar, you should do this, instead start with the question of, are you sick of paying too much for your energy bill? Like, do you have this problem? There's a solution. Here's how you can change that. So for our programs, that's something we try and have a big focus on so that we are targeting everyone in the community as best we can. Our sustainable neighbourhood groups have been really great as well. And I've really enjoyed working with them. This is some creative writing I got to do for our case study. So trying to think about, how to get somebody to read a case study on someone that has an electric home that's working for them, maybe start with a title that's possibly a little bit saucy, what's the secret, what's going on, and sort of lead them on that journey about how, their home, they can do simple things to make those changes. This lady, Gail, she's a bit of a powerhouse. We all love Gail at council. She has done some incredible things through the Sustainable Neighbourhood Group. So we encouraged her to apply for some grants where she created solar workshops for her community. So she engaged a local solar supplier to come and run educational workshops for anyone that wanted to attend for free. So the community could come along and learn about solar and battery and ask any questions they had without having that solar or battery products being sold to them. So it was very, Gail made it very clear in those projects that whoever was speaking, they weren't selling anything. They were just simply trying to educate the community. So that was really great to see. And we have recently had a few of the other sustainable neighbourhood groups come forward with people that are wanting to get involved with rewiring Australia and different things. So hopefully we'll see those groups start to grow in the next year or so. So the future for us with Lake Mac Council, we've got the wonderful Solar Neighbourhoods program that Lexi's been leading. We've jumped on board with that. So that's something we'll be able to offer to our community. I spoke before about the NatHERS assessments. That's something that's on our radar. And now our council, we're funded all from our sort of internal budget, and it's not huge. So for us, we have to be quite particular about projects that we engage with and what we jump on board with to make sure that we're spending our budget really wisely and sort of covering all of as many bases as we can. We'd also like to sort of bring in another EV day because we've found that the EVs are a really, really great way to sort of start that talking point with the community. I come from a family of petrol heads, I will also admit. So for me, engaging my own family in this space often comes from talking about, oh, did you see the new EV that's out? Or did you see this car that can go this fast? And that is a way for me to sort of engage my family in this space and get them interested in electrifying and reducing emissions. So that's something that I think we'd like to see in the future with Lake Mac. But we also, now that we've sort of picked off that low-hanging fruit, we've got really great engagement with our community, starting to look at businesses and other aspects of the community that we haven't reached out to yet and starting to get them engaged. So if other councils are doing work like that and they'd love to share their ideas, I'd love to hear them. So for us, another big win was getting home energy efficiency or electrification sort of locked into our strategic plan from 2025 to 2035. So that's been really great because it means that the future of these programs is guaranteed. We do have to keep running them, or we want to keep running them. So that's been really great to have that happen for us, and hopefully it might even see a little bit more funding and opportunities come our way for us to keep growing this section. So I will leave it at that. I think questions are for the panel, but yeah, thank you, everybody.
Right, thank you, Mel. Maybe we all should be talking more to train drivers and coal miners and so forth to get the message across. So our next speaker is Sonia Williams from Inner West Council. She's part of the council's community sustainability team. She supports residents and small businesses with emissions reductions capacity building, with an original focus on increasing solar uptake through running the Solar My School program rollout across 21 Inner West schools, as well as Council's Solar My Strata program with 75 apartment blocks. Sonia is now focusing on the wider program scope of solar batteries and electrification of both households and small businesses. Before I introduce Sonia, I'd like to acknowledge that the Renew Sydney branch were recipients of one of their grants, which has really helped us a lot and built up our capacity to do events such as this. Anyway, could you welcome Sonia?
Thank you, Graham. Happy to be here. Thank you for putting on this event. Firstly, I'd also like to acknowledge that we're gathered here today on Darug land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So here we are with electrification in the Inner West. Everybody is probably familiar with this shared imagery which comes from the Electrification Community of Practice, which has been a fantastic thinking bed of ideas led by, someone mentioned, I think Lexi before, Donna Luckman and the Merribeck Council. So for council officers who are new to this space, definitely look up that group. It's fantastic knowledge sharing. So we've really lent on the knowledge of the Victorian councils who have a gas phase out mandate. So they're a little bit further along from us. So great learnings. So we dipped our toes into the electrification pond in 2023 when there was this shared national rollout. We did a little bit of advertising, had some community case studies with local designers, local households that had electrified, and a local doctor from the environment that was focusing on the health impacts of moving away from gas. But it sort of stayed a little bit stagnant. We didn't really have a big budget behind it. And we had an action plan, go electric, but this sort of go-to phase was really look up more information on a rebate website, or perhaps go to Choice or go to Renew to find some more information. But we didn't really pull people through the funnel. So very inspired by what Lisa and the others have done in the city of Parramatta. That's coming up next. So this is a little bit about the Inner West. We're here in Parramatta over in Western Sydney, and we are neighbouring the city of Sydney. We're in a metropolitan council. We have a population of 188,000. The two key variables that are of interest for us in our electrification journey is we have very high rental, over 40%, and we also have very high apartments, again, over 40%. Industrial electricity consumption is going down as we're getting a lot of inner metropolitan areas that are converting to housing, and we're finding that more people are living alone. So we've got a lot more in single households, and that's increasing. So we just launched on 1st of September an free energy upgrade advice program with ZapCat. We've made it accessible for apartments, small businesses and homes, Each program has a different landing page, so there's a different calculation behind the instant estimates for the different product types. So as you can see across the bottom, we've wanted to expand into product offerings that can be relevant for renters, particularly in the insulation and draft proofing. And we're really excited about the prospect of, with ZapCat being a part of the Race for 2030 Australian Energy Upgrade for Australian Homes program. That's our landing page, zapcat.innerwest, and you can have separate landing pages / if you want to go to apartments or businesses. So as Lisa's mentioned, it is a step-through process. It was people go at their own pace, and where we haven't yet got much feedback around the uptake, but really excited to hear that this is a program that can take people through all those touch points, potentially up to 40. So what was appealing for us was having dedicated home energy experts across, because we've got a wide product offering. So having the triage, and you are dedicated to specific experts, potentially in the electrification, in the insulation and energy efficiency, which is a different skill set from a solar and battery installer. So how have we gone so far? After 2 weeks of results, what we're really excited about is the conversion rate. So of 30 instant estimates, we've got 21 people asking for a consult or a recommendation, 72%. That gives us feedback that people are ready to play. So they're not scared off by an instant estimate. They're looking to get more information. We're also pleased that there is a broad range of topic areas. It's not, home solar does include solar and batteries, so that's typically the gateway into electrification, but energy efficiency, draft proofing, and apartment solar in there as well. No EV charging yet. Hopefully that'll come soon. So this is a little bit about the Race for 2030 Energy Upgrade Program. It's a national program, and we're working with ZapCat and Institute of Sustainable Futures at UTS. Jamie, lead research guru, is here. So we're fitting inside this blue bubble. So we're working on a program that's doing vetted supplies and community education. So the program as a whole is really looking at what are the motivations and the inputs, and how are people going to be motivated to make change. So for this program, we're doing split testing of our social media engagement. So potentially looking at each advertisement and the title, how that affects both the click-through rate, and then once you're at the ZapCat page, what is the engagement? So is an advertisement happy to get you to the instant estimates, and do you click, or are you just wanting to have a look around? So once that gets through, we can track social media chatter, we can look at comments, and then once we get through to the a bit further along in the evaluation, we will be checking if people are agreeable to handing over their information for council to survey. We will be looking at the property type, level of income, level of property ownership, to get an idea of what are the key motivation factors for each property type, what are the barriers, and how can we, I guess, lead people through the program. So it's exciting for us to be part of this academic rigor, and that everything all gets put into the one learning pool. Aside from ZapCat, we have an Inner West Green Living Centre. This is a program that's been running in council for a number of years. They have their own very engaged audience with a distribution list in the above 4,000. So that program is now dedicated in our former council depot, which has been reconverted into the Inner West Sustainability Hub. It's a dedicated resource and reuse centre. We have a number of community tenants that work in reuse and repair. And we've been running energy efficiency consultations with an expert. It's in the bottom right corner there. So that is a booked consultation, 45 minutes. And again, if they have access to a smart meter, try to seek the NMI data. And the consultant's feedback is he really notices that people respond to visual prompts rather than looking at a CSV file. He uploads the NMI data, and then you can see actual consumption over 2 years or 1 year condensed into a 24-hour period so that you really know where to target your activities. Again, he takes people through the Energy Made Easy to look at energy retail and the Sunspot for solar and battery. So that's been a very popular program. That's happening every 6 weeks on a Saturday. We also lend out energy saving resources. The thermal imaging cameras have gone off. We started with 2, and they're lent through our Green Living Centre, either pick up at our service centre or at the Green Living Centre, which is open on a Saturday. And then we had a request to add them to our library catalogue. So we've now got 3 in the libraries, and current reservation status, I think there are about 30 on reserve across three libraries. And with the council cost is about $900 to $1,200 per camera. And because it's so popular, we limit it to a 7-day loan. It's actually 5 days when we ask for, if it's picked up from council, we ask for it back by close of business Tuesday, so that we charge them on Wednesday and they're available for pickup on Thursday. We don't let the charging cable out, and we ask that community members take off the images before they return the camera. So words got out, and we don't really promote that much, but the reservations in the library are large, and also through the Green Living Centre. Because it's been so popular, the library are happy to have us give a presentation about how the thermal imaging cameras works, and then that will be followed up by a sort of an online or a face-to-face session if people want to stay back after the library session to go through their specific energy advice. Portable induction cooktops, they haven't had the level of popularity as the induction cameras, sorry, the thermal imaging cameras, but we have a single and a double hob available for lending. And to increase the sort of education about the induction, the Green Living Centre has run for the past 1.5 years a series of induction cooking education sessions, and they're partnered with cultural events. So we've had one for Chinese New Year, Diwali, NAIDOC, and in the lead up to Ramadan Iftar Altir. And we invite guest chefs. So we look for chefs that are happy or happily use induction cooking in either their restaurants, their permanent restaurants, or they perhaps run vans or do pop-ups. And so the chefs talk through how they use induction cooking for their food offerings, and then someone from council takes people through what's involved in induction cooktops, how do they work, the benefits of, the health benefits of cooking with induction, getting off gas, what are the decision-making factors, and how to go about looking at an induction cooktop upgrade for your home. So that's been a popular program. And as Graham mentioned, we have a council grants program that is on offer for 2 years, and community groups who offer up projects that work in renewable energy, energy efficiency. It is, the council environment program is broader. It does cover things such as biodiversity, water sensitive urban design, waste management is a separate stream. But we've been pleased to work with Renew for the 23-24 Sydney chapter to run online events, and that they brought all their technical skills to bear to run hybrid events. So that's given us a lot more flexibility to have interstate presenters and interstate online visitors. So you can see there from the range of topics that it's really comprehensive. The people who've signed up to this program, a number of them are already the Renew chapter event, but we're bringing new people in. And so it's been sitting in the room. There is I guess the people that are brand new, that there's quite a bit of engagement with the sort of regular people who know a lot. So then that cross education has been working well. We have all of those recordings on our Electrification page, and they're also on the Renew YouTube. Another grant recipient, Solar Citizens, they came to us with some creative thinking about how to attract harder to access groups. The gentleman on the left there was running a kids activity. We were targeting school parents to come in for an afternoon session, again at our Inner West Sustainability Hub. The education space there, council has offered that to all community groups who want to use it free of charge for community education events. So that was trying to target school pickups, and it was less of a formal event. It was more of a drop-in session. So they had community advocates, solar citizens who have gone through the electrification journey, and there was a guest speaker from one of the electricity retailers, but it was more of a casual setup. So they also they ran an event late August for our Chinese population at Ashfield, and that's another benefit of working with ZapCat. One of their co-founders is a Mandarin speaker, so we were able to, for our launch, film a video in Chinese, and then we put that out through our Chinese media. We also, aside from the grants program, we happily work or support the Inner West Community Energy, which is a very well-established community energy group who have installed over 400 solar installations across Sydney, starting in the Inner West. And they have now branched out into electric hot water heat pumps and batteries. So we've run some energy efficiency events, preparing your house for winter with them, and they're doing a great job as well. In 2023, September, council made a resolution that council was to pilot an energy efficiency service for low-income households, and working with community groups to do that. So we went out to market and ended up working with a local community housing provider who is actually the landlord, and we felt would have more capacity to do energy efficiency upgrades. So we worked with the Women's Housing Company. They own a number of their own properties as well as manage properties on behalf of Homes New South Wales. So the program involved doing baseline scorecard assessments for 8 low-income homes, and then it was discovered that the best upgrade activities would be insulation. There was 0 insulation, and then one property had existing gas storage hot water, so the upgrade was a recommendation to replace those single units with electric hot water heat pumps. The budget did run out, so the Women's Housing Company paid for 2 of the 4 hot waters. The best results were they were both 2-story buildings, and the best results were in the buildings where the homes were on the top story and the ones that had the hot water heat pump replacement. So not insignificant, $1,180 per year. The scorecard was then re-evaluated, and we got a 0.5 to a 2-star scorecard rating improvement, and that's based on a rating of 10. So that's pretty much where we're up to now. We look forward to seeing the future rollout of ZapCat and hope to have more to say next year. Thank you very much.
So our next speaker is Mitchell Kirsch, from Sustainability Project Officer from Woollahra Council. Mitchell has a Bachelor of Environmental Earth Science and 5 years experience in sustainability, project management and communications. As the Sustainability Project Officer at Woollahra Council, he is responsible for developing, delivering and reporting on energy, water and emissions reduction projects. He has a particular passion for engaging local community members, and he'll be talking about the Apartment Sustainability and Energy Savings Program, which is one of his favourite projects to work on. So please welcome Mitchell. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I don't know about you, I'm absolutely buzzing. It's been a great couple sessions. I've considered briefly moving to Newcastle or Lake Mac just to get involved with community programs. Very exciting. As mentioned, yeah, Mitchell Kirsch from our council. I'm here to present on our program. Tough to follow up with all the acts that have already progressed, but I'm excited to show this is more focused on apartment buildings specifically. Woollahra, translated in the Druid language, is camp, lookout, or meeting ground. So in the spirit of the meeting ground that we're on, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we meet today, Burmadigal clan of the Druid Nation, and of the lands in which I work, the Gadigal. Thank you. The Gadigal and Birrabirragal people of the Eora Nation. And also hello to everyone online. Where's my camera? On behalf of Woollahra Council, acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people attending today, pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. A little bit about our LGA. It's about 12 square kilometers. I think Lake Mac was what, 600 something. So yeah, a little bit smaller. We're in Sydney's eastern suburbs. We're very much largely residential. We do have some commercial areas, some really beautiful parklands, and a military reserve up in Watsons Bay. Why apartments specifically rather than a full-on community electrification program? Well, about 60% almost of residents reside in apartments. This is expected to increase quite drastically over time. I'm sure you might have heard of a particular train station in the news recently. So yes, lots of dwellings coming into Woollahra. I'm taking no questions on the train station. Let's stick to electrification. But more importantly, apartments account for over 30% of our community greenhouse gas emissions and about 50% of potable water use. So while we are focusing primarily on electrification, there is a bit of water tied into the mix just to focus on that kind of full scope of sustainability. Residents are also generally of a higher socioeconomic status in Woollahra, primarily English speaking. And the demographics skewed more towards kind of parents and home builders in 35s, 45s, or older workers, retirees, and seniors. So two things that I kind of get from that. People do have generally a little more capital to work with when trying to undertake upgrades, but also that they're at an age where they're really interested in trying to reduce bills, trying to be a bit more greener, and are interested to learn a bit more and might have a bit of technical experience in the background to really look into these more and have the time to dedicate towards it. A little bit about our program. There's two main objectives, which is to reduce common area energy usage in participating buildings by about 20%, and also to showcase sustainability projects through case studies that are being implemented locally. And the case studies really help to exemplify what buildings are already doing and what learnings can be shared across the LGA. In terms of selection criteria, when residents apply, we review based on the demonstrated likelihood of implementing energy-saving measures, opportunities for emissions reductions, and the prospect of providing case studies. And the way that we do this is ask a lot of different questions in the registration process about what energy upgrades they've already done in the building, which helps to understand what their maturity is like, but also what they're looking to do. So giving an understanding of what their main aim is. And as we've heard before from the other presentations, it's primarily around cost savings, but there is sometimes that kind of green energy savings, energy efficiency to tap into as well. In regards to the overall offer, this is probably pretty similar to, I think what Lisa has mentioned before with their assessments. So it's a free in-person sustainability assessment of their apartment block with the program consultants, and myself and one of my colleagues, Michelle Rose, we love to tag along when we can because it's great to really chat to the residents. We're focused on kind of really building that relationship directly with them. Once that assessment's done, they get a report covering the applicable energy and water saving opportunities, including a financial and environmental business case for each. So financial more sits with the residents to understand how much it's going to cost and what are they going to save. But also for us, it's helpful to see what that environmental impact is. They also get a 1-hour webinar to building residents to present that report from the consultants, the consultant presents the report to them. They get a little guidance, and they also can answer any questions, which really helps to understand what the barriers might be with the building. Sometimes there's the stalwart within the building that doesn't really want to do anything, is not open to change. But when they have a discussion and start to understand the barriers and how to resolve them, they can get a bit more on board, which is really helpful. The webinar is also recorded, so they get a copy of it, which they can refer to back. We also allow for about 20 minutes of additional liaison with consultants. That's just factored into the cost. And we find this is quite helpful because oftentimes they have remaining questions. So to kind of avoid that scope creep, we like to include that in. And I think it just makes the consultants, us, and the residents a little more comfortable. They don't feel like they're being overbearing by trying to ask more questions. So we find that that's quite helpful for everyone to let them know that they have a little more time to ask, because oftentimes there are some little things that they might want to clarify. Council also includes a little waste element, which I'll touch on a bit later, and also some educational resources similar to a lot of the other examples we've heard from councils, with some educational webinars, some guides, and what's really helpful, which some have already touched on, providing a list of contractors to really get them to that next stage past just getting a report, understanding, going to the quoting process, essentially. How it works, you can see that pretty well. I've split this up into two sections, really just to show kind of where people start from in terms of the registration and onboarding, and then on to the actual site visits. We've kind of explained this in previous presentations, so I won't spend too much time on it. But we launched the program and promote it through relevant media channels, which includes printed and digital newsletters and also social media. The apartment blocks, they register online through a web form hosted by the consultant. We get those back and review them based on that selection criteria, and then make a selection out of those who've applied. We notify the apartment blocks through email and advise on the next steps. And the main next step is passing a demonstration of commitment resolution, which is a fancy way of saying that they get permission, they give us permission and the consultant to request utility and building data up to 5 years. This really helps to get that access, and it also appoints a designated contact. So for council, it really helps us kind of have that official, they are part of the program, they have signed up officially, and we are able to kind of take them to the next level. The next step is then introducing the consultant officially, and we request building and utility information from, or the consultant requests that. The block then provides all the information, and we schedule a site visit. Moving on to the site visits, we conduct that with council staff. We deliver the reports to the apartment block. They then have enough time to really digest. It's a lot of information, especially when you have multiple different projects. So they can take as much time as they need, because by then we've paid the consultants, so there's no kind of time pressure. I think Lisa mentioned the end of financial year barrier with, you have it for a certain period. So this really helps relieve pressure from everyone once that report's delivered. So they get that Zoom presentation, and then there's an ongoing process where we check in every 3 to 6 months, collect data to evaluate, and develop case studies where we can. In terms of participation, we've had 3 rounds. It started in September 2019, and then that first round went to 2020. There's a second round in March 2021 to February 2023. We had a mix of buildings participate, and those are really kind of trial periods to test the process and the program. Heavily impacted by a global pandemic, which was quite difficult. But still, it was great to get that initial bit. I took over in round 2, so it was quite hard to evaluate when a lot of people moved and a lot of things changed. But still, we got some decent numbers, which is okay. I've also realized I can be way nerdier in my data nerdiness. More surveys, Lisa, I've realized. Great outcome. But yes, definitely can improve kind of what metrics you choose. And then round 3, we started in February 2025, and that's continuing onwards. It did technically end in last financial year due to our budget, but we're still supporting buildings. Again, it's a long process. We didn't really designate specifically by suburb, but I was just wanted to show kind of the range across our different suburbs, and showing in the middle, Darling Point has 9 buildings, which is more than any other suburb, but 194 units, which isn't even as high. So it depends on what kind of size it is. And in terms of building size, we had about 15 small blocks, 11 medium blocks, and 9 large blocks, which designated as over 41 units. In regards to reports, I'll try and move myself. Just going to minimize. There we go. The reports, we partnered with Wattblock on all 3 rounds of the program. In the initial stages, they offered a couple different types. The LED lighting report has kind of dropped off a bit because generally buildings have done an LED lighting upgrade and don't really need a really detailed design for it. A lighting contractor can do that. But the sustainability report was the most common by far. And I'll go through a little bit of the inclusions there in a sec. There was also a solar feasibility study for buildings that wanted to really hone in on solar. We had one in Paddington, that was a 120-unit building that were really interested in it. They already did heat pumps and already had done LED lighting. So it was great to really focus and hone in on one specific project rather than a sustainability report because they've already done some initiatives. And I included the EV charging feasibility study. Again, similar approach. No one's really taken that up yet. Woolar is quite progressive in installing public EV chargers in the area. And generally there's enough around for people to be supported by that. So no one's really gone to that specifically. Just to mention on the costs, again, we partnered with Wattblock for all 3 rounds, but it did depend by report type, size, and who you're going with in terms of the supplier. But generally they're about $1,400 to $3,000 per report, and we budgeted about $20,000 for each round just to cover the report costs and some consultant time, which also included maybe a kind of launch webinar for residents so they can explain the program and get a better idea. We've already kind of gone through quite a lot of those inclusions there, but I really just wanted to hone in on the Energy Made Easy tariff review, which has already been mentioned is really helpful, and that a more in-depth description of the sustainability opportunities, which cover a wide range of things as part of that report, which is really great. And it also includes 2 to 3 solar and battery options. So it comes with kind of a light option covering a bit of the roof and then a maximize option, also some solar. So residents can really see what they want to go for and whether there's some hesitations to really, maybe they don't have much budget, they want to prioritize capital works. It's helpful to have those options available. And I also just mentioned as well, there's some finance options and then some guidance on the Strata committee resolutions to help pass, as well as some bylaw guidance. And Wattblocks includes that in every report. It's pretty much a copy paste of the slide, but it is really helpful for residents to understand how that governance process works within their building. Oftentimes, there is tricky pathways through it. You have to get a lot of people on board. So it is helpful for them to be aware of how they can really progress that. This is just an example of a sustainability report. It's much more in depth, but just to show that on the top there, summary of top opportunities, which goes through a whole list of them, and then a bit more in detailed view of the a solar and battery option, how it kind of works against the common load, what the payback is, the excess solar that would be exported to the grid. So it gives the residents an understanding of what this looks like and how they can plan for it. And we find this is really helpful. It also includes some design considerations. So for this building in particular, you can see some shading in that photo. So it touches on that and what they need to be careful of. So if they do go out to quote, a contractor can't just quote for it in a super maximized solar system that doesn't actually work very well. So it gives them a bit of confidence in going out to quote. In regards to results, oh, that's fun. My colors have changed. We had 2 trial rounds, as mentioned. It got impacted by COVID, so it was quite difficult for me to really follow it with those buildings. But from what I could get, the main thing that we really love to focus on at Woolar with these programs is that 100% of buildings that participated have sustainability on the agenda. This is the story that we're trying to focus on. The metrics are really great, but what we really want to do is equip residents with the ability to have that report. I think Lisa had mentioned people really cherish that report. They love going back to it, and that's a really great outcome for us. It's great to hear that they can. We even had a building 5 years later that participated in our first round just install a new solar system on their building thanks to that report. So it's a long time coming, but it's great to hear that they are progressing with those opportunities. Again, just for some quick metrics, about $45,000 was spent on buildings that did upgrade, $18,000 in savings. So it's good payback period, about 3 to 4 years based on that. That was a mix of LED upgrades and some solar. Had about an annual energy reduction of 46 megawatts and about 48 annual emissions done. I like that stat about 10-year emissions energy reduction. Thank you, Lacey. Good one there. We also love to hear the qualitative feedback. So it's great to hear that people had a really positive experience with the program. I can definitely add some more survey questions in. Thank you for the help. It's great to learn for everyone on what people are using for metrics, and that kind of feedback is really helpful for us. Our third round's been really great. It's been great to really chat with residents directly. I actually just heard today from Brent from Wattblock that actually 3 buildings are looking at the SOAR grants and the New South Wales federal battery grants. So that's a really great incentive for them, and we find that the program paired quite well with that grant opportunity. 3 other buildings are looking at discussing with their committees on solar and some other projects, and then other buildings are planning for upgrades in the longer term capital works. A really good example of this is when buildings have a roofing upgrade or waterproofing. As part of the waterproofing, they can ask to include metal support rods for the solar as part of it. And then in a year or 2 or 3, they can then install the solar and the support's already there. They don't have to re-waterproof the rods. So it's just a helpful way to see how they can stage these installations, and they feel a lot more comfortable with it, so they don't get caught out in 3 years' time and have to re-waterproof the whole thing. 2 slides on learning insights and improvements. We've touched on quite a few of these, so I won't spend too much time. But as I mentioned, getting sustainability on the agenda or having a list of projects that they can look at is really a great start for them. It equips them with an idea of how much things will cost, how to stage the project, and also the confidence on how to get started. Identifying feasible and unfeasible upgrades are both good outcomes of a program. So if solar is not very feasible for them, that's fine. It's good for them to know that, so that they aren't wondering about how they should be doing it or wasting energy to try and get quotes. They can focus on an LED lighting upgrade or hot water heat pump. So finding that it's unfeasible is really helpful for them. But it also helps to understand where they might need to wait for a grant program or another opportunity. We really focus on not just owners and investors or people on the strata committee, but everyone involved. So renters, it's obvious reducing energy bills, and they might want to have maybe a more green home, but that the cost might be prohibitive, especially with green power. Whereas owners and investors might care about that, but also what that we find really helpful is when we note the property evaluation uplift from the Domain Sustainability and Property 2025 report. Owners and investors are not very interested until we mention that you can get maybe 10, 13% increase in your property value with these upgrades. So that does include a range of upgrades, but they get quite interested and involved when they realize that their unit can increase in value. So we find that that's a really good mention when you're discussing that with strata committees. And also with strata managers, there's the New South Wales strata laws has to consider sustainability at the AGM properly. We find that would be a good incentive for them to really consider it, not just a tick box exercise, but an actual quality report that they can get a lot of lists for this to then consider all these projects. So we find that if we were to do future rounds, we'd probably target that messaging a little bit more around all the people involved, not just the strata committees or residents. And also, as I mentioned, blocks are likely already on their journey. So we've asked them to registration forms what upgrades they're doing. And that helps to give an idea of how we can assess them as part of the selection criteria. Last little bits. We've already heard it, but definitely plan for change. So residents move, committees and strata managers change, and staff turnover. So we learned from our first 2 rounds that you should require 2 to 3 contacts for the registration. Definitely 1 to 2 committee members, and also a strata manager. So they're on board. You have multiple contacts in the building. This is really essential, especially when trying to engage with these people, the residents, because you have multiple points of contact, and it helps to keep that momentum going. And also within council, keep really great internal records, factor that into the resourcing for the project, and update these as well as you can. If you can keep a record of what buildings are interested in, but maybe you don't have the money for, you can update them on grant opportunities. So it kind of becomes sort of a mailing list, which we find is quite helpful. We've already heard this, sustainability upgrades take a very long time. As I mentioned, in some cases, 5 years. So really ask those questions during the site visits if you're the one attending them, or get the consultant to get that information. I think ZapCat has included that a little bit in their program, which is quite great to see. But you try and get a lot of the info to understand where they're at. accessing the building utility data was quite difficult for us. You want to see what they've done before and what they've done after. Generally before is fine because they are willing to provide it as part of it. But a couple of years down the line, people you're talking to someone different. So it gets quite difficult. So I just mentioned that you might want to consider what metrics you're trying to report on. I really liked the satisfaction ratings versus direct energy reduction. That was quite helpful. And consider that in capacity of your team and the budget that you have. You can also specify consultants' estimations for cost payback and utility savings. That's quite helpful in WAP block reports. So if they do go ahead with a project, at least we have a general understanding of what that impact might be. But definitely understand how they got there and what those numbers are in case anybody asks what those questions about it. And then, as someone's already mentioned, plan ahead for the end of financial year budget, and also plan for heavy project admin. Residents love to chat in your ear when they have it, and I've already helped a resident with a leaning Osgrid pole that has nothing to do with us, but they were keen about it. Traffic going through their area and being super loud. And a tree that they requested to be cut. So I mention this because it is part of a customer experience. You are a touch point for them. So factor that in as part of your resourcing, that people will come and chat to you and want help for other things. And it's a great outcome of the program to help them out with that. Oftentimes it's a flick of an email to the right person and you can get their answers for them. So you're kind of the touch point for them. That is pretty much it. Oh, yes. And one other thing, you can also support residents in other ways. We've heard about some really amazing, incredible programs, but oftentimes the little educational sessions and webinars are really helpful. And we've seen some evidence for that from the other councils. Consultant and third-party guidance on suppliers and contractors, very helpful to residents. And we've seen the effects of that as well to really get them to that quoting process. And I also mentioned that in one instance last year, 2 years ago now, we had 10 30-minute solar and EV charging advice sessions with a consultant that helped blocks out, and it just got them a little bit more info. So it doesn't have to be a full-on program. It could be something light and easy, and that really gives the backing to do more if there's a lot of interest in those things. We also added a waste element into the third round. So we asked residents what they dealt with in terms of waste, looked at their waste bin area, and then offered them some updated waste signage and FOGO caddy bins. It's nice to give the residents something tangible instead of just a digital report. I hope they think of council when they see that, hopefully not looking at their waste bin specifically, but it is nice to know that they have something available and that we can kind of tie in the waste team onto it as part of a full encompassing sustainability program. That's it. I'm sure there's lots of burning questions, so excited for the panel session. Thanks, Renu, for having me, and really looking forward to hearing all your questions. Thanks.
Right. Thank you, Mitchell. We'll just take a couple of minutes to set up for the panel discussion. So we've got to get set up some mics and that. So just be patient with us. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We have a panelist joining us who you've already probably heard a fair bit about, Paroska from SAPCAT. I've left my notes on the table, but she is a director of the social enterprise SAPCAT, which she has set up. And I met her a couple of years ago at a sustainability event with Inner West Council. And she has come to several Renew events. And the social enterprise SAPCAT is helping households and businesses transition to clean energy through electrification. She was inspired to start SAPCAT after finding the process of transitioning her home to clean energy challenging and probably confusing, and now works with councils to deliver community-wide electrification programs. She holds a PhD in public health and previously worked on international public health programs in Cambodia and Malawi. So please welcome Paroska. So we have a roving mic. So if there's any questions from the floor, if you can put your hand up, and please wait until the mic gets to you.
Thank you. Cad from Northern Beaches Council. They were all fantastic presentations. I've probably got questions for all of you afterwards, but just focusing on the solar for apartments for strata, which is the hard nut to crack, I think. How do we get to the owners' corps? How do we do it? And does anybody have any insights into whether the government might be extending the solar for apartment residents grant offer that's due to close on the 1st of December?
Good question. I don't know if they're extending it. I hope they are. That would be very nice. Yeah, engaging owners corps is quite difficult. We've really just gone through the residents to kind of get them on board. I do know our neighbor Waverley Council has hosted kind of more specific webinars and engagement sections with owners corps to really get them on board. But yeah, otherwise it's a bit of a tough nut to crack. Anyone else have any advice?
We were also worked with Watt Block when we ran our Solar for Strata program, and in the scoping phase, their advice was to, I think we have 1,200 strata title properties. Their advice was to shrink that down to a solar target list of about 200, and they look at the key variables. They look at orientation, roof type, size, and energy load, and then so they were looking for something that would typically have a payback of 5 to 7 years. This is pre solar for apartment residents grants. But then we went out and wrote to those properties and said, congratulations, you're on our solar target list. Here is an offer. And we found that that had really good take up. Sorry? It was really hard. We did the first mail out care of the secretary. Don't know if sometimes when we don't know who the secretary is, and sometimes in the letterbox, the old-fashioned one, you've got number 1 to 20 and then it says manager. But then for the second round, we had a directive to write to every resident in those targeted properties. So that was in COVID, which was a bit tricky because we couldn't do letterbox drop. So we had to kind of muster a massive targeted address list, and we've got a number of properties where there is no 4th floor. There's only a 4th, the 3rd and a 3A, and you have to sort of work around that. Otherwise, it just gets returned to sender. So that's really tricky.
On the grant, we have quite a number of buildings that are either going through or about to go through the grant application process for the apartment grants. We are in close contact with people who know how many applications there have been. We understand there's a possibility of it being extended, but that has not been confirmed. So our advice at the moment to blocks is you need to get your application in before the 1st of December deadline, absolutely. And we're doing everything we can to get people there on time, but it is a really slow process with strata. And I think there's a very good chance that quite a few blocks that we're working with simply won't have their AGM at the right moment to actually pass the resolution required to make the application on time. So we are really, really hoping, again, if there is anybody here listening, working on that grant, we are really hoping that it would be extended. It would help a lot of the blocks that we're working with. In terms of getting to the owners corporations, it's group decision making in strata, and there's a number of different players that can be involved. You can have an individual resident that's really motivated. You can have a strata committee, which is a subset of the owners. You can have an owners corporation, which is all the owners, and then you can have a strata manager who's actually the designated administrative executor of what the owners corporation decides. And we have tried accessing all of these groups. We actually had David, he's somewhere here in the audience. He called every single strata manager in the city of Parramatta, and not one of them called him back. We find that the strata managers themselves, they have a very high caseload. They just want less work, not more work. But also there's, and you would have seen it in the news, this isn't our personal opinion, but in the news, there's a lot of kickbacks being paid to strata managers. And so they are looking for things where they make a referral and they get commission back. And we have had conversations with strata managers along those lines, which obviously we take no lead. We take no lead fees or commissions of any kind. Our advice is independent, and because we don't take them or pay them, they don't particularly want to talk to us. So we find that the best way to get apartment blocks is actually the really motivated single resident who brings their strata committee along to the party.
Right, thank you.
Just a comment adding into the question about how do you reach the apartments. This is a personal opinion. I was the motivated resident who applied for the solar grant. I don't work in that area at all, nor do I have any information about extending the grant. But my strata manager actively was discouraging me from applying, saying, "Oh, you probably get a no. It's probably not worth it, et cetera, et cetera." What was really helpful was solar quotes solar choice or solar quotes provided a draft motion for us, like having that information readily available to residents, because you have to draft the motion yourself. You have to put the information forth. You have to provide the stats on how it will save the other owners and residents money. So I made a fact sheet, I did all of that. So thankfully I was able to do that, but having that third party come in and say, hey, here's the 3 quotes, here's a draft for the motion you can present to your committee, having that additional information was critical. And our apartment, despite 7 out of the 9 being owners with renters, voted yes to approve it. So yeah.
Hi, how's it going? Chris from GSCS. I just want to thank all the speakers today. I'm really impressed with the number of initiatives you all have going on and the amount of support you provide to your constituency. Our company is actually engaged or have previously been engaged with each of your councils. So hello. But one thing I noticed was that all of you have info sessions, webinars, sustainability festivals. Who do you call upon to provide support? And is it possible to get on a list to provide support for those events? Because we'd love to participate in those.
I feel like I'm really promoting Waverley here. I know Waverley Council, they did I think you might be on that list actually, or I'll double check, but they've done an expression of interest to different suppliers for kind of home energy advice. And they went out to a bunch of different consultants and they kind of shortlisted those consultants. So that might be an opportunity if councils are interested to kind of direct people to who to go to that avoids that risk of nominating one specific person. You have a short list that you've already kind of pre-vetted to suppliers. That might be an opportunity. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's just contacting the council to see what events are coming up and what you might be able to get involved with is my best suggestion, which seems kind of obvious.
Yeah, I would say that's the same for us with our sustainability festival that we run. We sort of put out a stallholder application, expressions of interest, and get applications that way, and proceed that way. But yeah, definitely reach out. I know that our council, if we have people reaching out to us wanting to be involved, we do look for opportunities to try and work together and do things.
Thank you. There's a question at the front here, I think. Another question here. All right.
Thanks, panel. David from Zapcat. I've got a question for probably all of you, apart from for Oscar on the end there. And my question is, for councils out there, particularly regional councils who may not have an established strategy around reducing community emissions, if you were listening today and you were a sustainability team member in a council, maybe in a regional area, what advice would you have for them if they were sort of starting off from basically nothing? Because I think it's fair to say that all the councils here have established strategies. Council have endorsed not only reducing the emissions of council operations, but also community emissions. I was interested in the community emissions part. What advice would you have for them?
So my advice is what Sonia said before, is join the Electrify Everything community of practice. I think last time I checked, there were 60 or 70 Australian councils that have signed up to this. It's got a base camp, so an online forum where we all talk to each other. Everything is on there and we share it freely. If you have a question, Belle and I ask questions on it all the time. Does anyone know an organisation that can do this, that offers specific advice for this? Does anyone have any templates or is open to sharing their request for quote documentation for a program like this? You'll be amazed at the support that you can access through this platform. There's also opportunities, I think it's every couple of months, there's webinars with councils and organisations sharing all of their learnings and supports and resources as well. So that's definitely the first thing I would do, is reach out to that. I don't know if you're aware of the JONSA program as well. I'm going to give a plug to that. This is a New South Wales government initiative, joint organisation Net Zero Accelerator. They've got 9 net zero managers in joint organisations and regional organisations across New South Wales, and it's specifically for regional councils, rural councils, under-resourced councils as well. So if you're in one of those areas, definitely utilise your net zero managers. Some of them are even starting to focus on community emissions reductions programs. So the Illawarra Shoalhaven Joint Organisation, for example, have in, I think it was in July, launched their community renewables program, their solar and battery program for their 4 member councils. So that just takes a huge weight off the limited resources within a council team by leveraging that net zero person in the joint organisation. And then in the Hunter, we've got a net zero coordinator in the Hunter region as well, who's looking at a region-wide electrification program, like this independent energy advice service as well for several councils in the Hunter as well. So it's a great opportunity to just be part of that and be involved in those programs without having to do all that heavy lifting yourself.
One more resource to add to that is Rewiring Australia. They do fantastic work, and potentially you could partner with a community org and they get the uplift through like a local regional electrification program, whether it's postcode or regional.
I was just going to add, definitely focus on the cost savings. You can target your messaging and communications towards relief from cost of living. That really helps residents. And you know, if you don't have a direct target within council to support a program like that, you can look into potential trials, try and get funding. So it's a bit of a lighter approach. But yeah, tailoring that messaging towards supporting residents and then focusing on what that story is. So often councillors like to kind of see how it looks to them, and you know, having a resident that is giving direct feedback that they've been supported by council directly, and this is a case study, helps to kind of give that story and see how the program works outside of a direct community emissions reduction target, for example.
The other thing I would add is, first thing to do is look at your data. You've seen 5 presenters from 5 different councils here that have 5 very different local government areas, and we've got 5 different strategies and different ways that we're approaching this. So what does your data tell you about where you need to focus and what your biggest bang for buck is?
Okay, thank you. If we don't have any more questions from the floor, we'll start taking them online if Stephen can read them out.
Question for Parramatta. Have you compared the program success and investment ratio to your solar rebate program or similar?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, so we ran a rebate program for a couple of years. I think in total we had about 80 residents take part, and basically it was a $500 rebate for a solar installation. I think at the minimum size was 6 kilowatts. So, you know, I guess it was popular. It sold out, so to speak, sold out very quickly. And I did survey the participants. And one of the questions I asked them was, how did this rebate influence your decision making? And would you have gone ahead with the solar installation without the rebate? And it was above 90% that said we would have done it without the rebate. So that was clear to me that I didn't need to spend money on that anymore. They were doing it anyway. So that allowed me to redirect that funding into other programs, being the home energy assessments and the advice service. So yeah, we did do a thorough analysis. We've done other programs as well under our Energy Future banner. Many councils were involved with AEF, Australian Energy Foundation, when it was around. Unfortunately, it folded. And again, the feedback from our residents was around that trust. So the suppliers that were provided as part of that program were found to not being very competitive with their quoting. But yeah, there was definitely an issue there that we needed to address at that time. But they folded, so kind of fixed that problem for us. But yeah, anyone else?
Next question.
This is from Kylie Parker. Can you quantify the staff resourcing needed to deliver Newcastle's community net zero training?
I haven't ran the numbers, but I can say it was quite resource intensive. It was a 6-week program and it was about 90% of my time for that 6 weeks. The budget we had for the program was about $20,000 and about $14,000 of that went to the speakers. We wanted to make sure that we got excellent quality content. And like I said, we developed a 100-page book out of it. So we got them to develop cheat sheets and summaries so that our participants didn't have to flick back through 600 slides. There are literally 600 slides. So we've got condensed into a book, and it's got excellent templates and strategies that leading organisations like Rewiring Australia are using when they're developing their campaign. So it's got everything in there. So quite resource intensive, but now we've done all of that work. We've got all of that content. We recorded all of those sessions. So it was a worthwhile investment from our perspective and the outcomes that we've seen, especially the outcomes that we didn't expect, like behaviour change and emissions reductions. Now that we're doing these network meetings, we do it for an hour and a half every second month. And the participants are, what are you working on next? How can I help? So they're so excited to get posters and flyers for our Solar Neighbourhoods program. They're going to talk about it to everyone that they know. So this is the value of these programs. We've created this network of people that we didn't have before. And our target market for that program was people that were concerned about climate change. They wanted to take action, but they didn't know what to do next. So it wasn't people that were already engaged. It's a brand new cohort of community members who are now at that top level of engagement. So it was resource intensive, $20,000 budget, but definitely worth it from our perspective. And we've got a full wait list for the next program, but we'll wait for the final full program evaluation before we decide if we'll be doing it again. But my manager is like, yes, you are doing it again.
Greg Langley from Randwick City Council says, "Hi Lexi, loved the course. Keen to sit down and learn more. Has the course been blueprinted for other councils? Any plans to do this?"
Yeah, so we had SciFal Newcastle, who helped us get the United Nations accreditation, reach out to us and say they want to help us do exactly that. They want to get it blueprinted so that other councils can just pick it up and run with it, because we've already set the agenda. We've already got all the resources there. We've already selected all of the speakers. So let's share it and let's let other councils copy and paste without having to do all that resourcing and research in the beginning to get it all set up. So definitely happy to share what we've got and share all our agendas and the contacts for the speakers. More than happy. I'm an open book, and we're happy to share and talk about that. And it's something that we're talking to SciFal Newcastle and the United Nations Institute of Training and Research about doing and rolling it out. I'd love to see the Jonza program roll it out as well. And we'll be looking at grant funds, so how we can roll it out broader scale as well.
Ken Fullerton asks, to both Parramatta and Newcastle councils, do you get much interest from members of your communities in relation to the New South Wales government offerings, so the energy savings schemes or the peak demand reduction scheme?
I don't have a lot to add on this yet. I'll let you know once we roll out our Solar Neighbourhoods program. We will be promoting the virtual power plant rebate that the New South Wales government rolls out. And once we roll out our Newcastle Electric Homes program with ZapCat as well, we'll know a little bit more about the energy saving scheme. So not a lot to comment on this. I'll hand over to maybe Elisa and Veronica. I can answer.
So the majority of people who do an instant estimate on our platform, which is the first step in the end-to-end process, are looking to find out whether it's financially worthwhile for them, and they want to know what incentives they can qualify for. It is the number one question that we answer. And that's why it's in the instant estimate, to answer it as quickly as possible and show them what they can get access to. So yes, I would say we have a very high level of interest in both the state and federal incentives, and in councils where we operate and the council has an incentive as well, we build that in. And that is absolutely what people want to know. Now, of course, it's not enough for them to know that the incentive is there. The whole thing combined together needs to look financially worthwhile. And then they still need help to get through the end-to-end process. And if you don't give them that help, the incentive we found for a lot of people is not enough. As you heard, I started ZapCat because I am one of the people you were trying to convince, and I did nothing for 5 years, even though I knew that I could get the incentive, because I had a busy healthcare job and I had a child, and it was all just a bit too hard. And I saw information sessions run by the local council, and I never went to them because they were always at bedtime, my child's bedtime. So I think there's a huge interest in the New South Wales incentives, actually any incentive, but it's not enough to actually, to Lisa's point, it's not enough to convince the people who face other barriers. It's one extra thing to get them to move, but we need to give them 20 to 40 steps of hand-holding to actually get them to the other end, which is why I built ZapCat. I actually had to build ZapCat to get my own house done. It is now done.
Yeah, look, I agree. And it depends on which program we're running, sometimes it really does help to motivate people to take advantage, especially if we start saying, the end of the year's coming, it's going to be reduced next year. It can sometimes push them over the line to take action. But yeah, in other programs, depends on how much they're investing. If it's, around the 20K mark, a $500 rebate, whatever, but they'll claim it anyway. So it's nice to have. So it definitely has its place. It's, as you said, Lexi, it's part of the suite of offerings that we should be giving our residents to help them on this transition.
A question from Nina.
One more last point around that. There has been issue with, particularly with the energy savings certificates, and less so for the peak demand reduction when it was for the battery, but the installers not wanting to bother with the paperwork to claim it. So that's been a plus for us. ZapCat, in their vetting of local installers, the expectation is that they will do the paperwork. No, the installers. That's a requirement to be working in the program. STCs and ESCs.
Nina Broadbridge, this is again for Lexi, I think. How did you get past legal department on being able to recommend potential providers?
Great question. We did a very, very expensive tender process. So, of course, local government, procurement, we've got policies and Local Government Act legislation that we need to adhere to. Our tender process took 10 months. It was a lot. So we started with an expression of interest process where we had 6 organisations apply, and then the evaluation panel across our 3 councils. We had a contracts manager, so a legal manager on that evaluation panel as well. We also had an independent expert who has run a lot of council solar and battery programs join that evaluation panel. So we shortlisted 3 organisations and then did the request for tender. Then we evaluated them again. The evaluation panel sat down and reviewed each of them, and that's where we came to select the preferred supplier, which is 1,5. So it was always going to be an issue for us going with one provider. And we originally tossed up when we were designing the program, do we have a panel of vendors? Do we have maybe 3 or 4, local installers? And that way we're giving more local installers the opportunity to participate. But it came back to the research that I showed you before. People want simple. They already have the option to get multiple quotes, and they're already overwhelmed, and it's leading to indecision. I would hear a story from someone calling me up every week saying that they are overwhelmed, and it's led to them deciding not to go ahead with it at all. So we decided that we needed to go with one. But what was really important for us is local installers. So we don't want installers travelling from out of our region when we've got excellent, trusted tradies right here in the Hunter region. So a key part of our tender process was making sure that local installers were being used, and 1,5 has an existing network of 4 Hunter installers that are all excellent, that will be participating in the program and rolling it out. So in terms of legal, we did significant due diligence process. Again, this took 10 months. So we crossed our T's, we dotted our I's. We had a contracts manager involved. The contract manager is still on our working group and is still overseeing program design, but because that was the major reputational risk. Is there anything you'd want to add to that?
I think we've got time for just one more question, Stephen.
Is there somewhere a program or group or local government targeting reduce the production of plastic? Basically, are there any programs there that address plastic usage and or waste?
It's slightly out of our remit today, but
We're mostly talking about energy and electrification, but the Inner West Council, we do have a circular economy working group, and through our, like where we have the environment grants, we also have circular economy grants, and a number of our tenants in the Inner West Sustainability Hub have been past recipients of grants, and there's a applicant who is working with IKEA on just the black coat hangers that they use internally, and when the item is sold, they throw them out. So he is working on, he shreds them up and then he melts them and he creates a carabiner like that you use for climbing. So that's just one example, and that we're also looking at developing a circular economy network where there are repair and reuse organisations, and we're setting them up with a map so that we can have people just having a higher visibility around repair and reuse. We didn't run our annual sustainability festival this year. We instead did a repair hub day. So we brought everyone to the hub naturally, and then we had such things as jewellery repair, electrical repair, furniture restoration. So the main focus has been on reuse.
City of Newcastle has a soft plastics recycling program. We partner with Kirby for this. So this enables residents to basically collect all their soft plastics. They pop it in a big plastic bag. It's got a special sticker with a QR code on it. Pop it in their yellow lid recycling bin, and then it actually all goes to IQ Renew, which is the recycling facility that's actually based on the Central Coast, so not too far from here, just in the middle. And they've got robotic arms that can scan those and pick them up, and that all gets taken and processed in their facility on the Central Coast, where they've figured out a way to do what Earth has done over billions of years, and it basically produces fossil fuels, right? So they're distilling that soft plastic back into its fossil fuel building blocks, and then they're using that again to create new soft plastic, or they're using it as synthetic fuel options. So they're doing some pretty cool stuff, and that's one plastic initiative that we've got at City of Newcastle.
All right, thank you. We will have to bring things to a close. So I just would like to thank all of our panellists, Mitch, Sonia, Lexi, Linda, Lisa, and Paroska. Just in closing, for those who are not familiar with Renew, I just thought I'd take a shameless opportunity to promote us a bit. We do work a lot with councils, as you've heard a bit today. We have our main focus event during the year is Sustainable House Day, and we have opportunities for councils to become partners on that day, where we can organise events with you if you have sustainable houses that are open on the day. We have resources such as our Getting Off Gas Toolkit. Our Green Rebuild Toolkit was mainly developed for bushfire areas, but also covers flood damage. We also have done a lot of council webinars, and I've put a link in there. We have a web page where you can go on there and register your interest if you're a council officer for how we can work with you. We have a big resource of videos of events such as this. I think there's over 700 videos on our YouTube channel. The recording of this event will be edited and posted on that YouTube channel. So that's all for today. Oh, just a reminder, on Thursday evening, we have a battery workshop. This is a follow-up to a battery webinar that we had nationally last Thursday. But we have a follow-up online workshop, and there's a web link for that as well. And that's all. And thanks for coming.